Hello. That video, I couldn't fit enough of what I had to say into it. I'm using a program which only does live feed or only does recording for 5 minutes at a time. I have to figure out another program or figure out how to make it longer. Anyways, we were talking about not that. We were talking about let's just go ahead and there we are. Okay. We were talking about using the flashlight method to piece together details from both Egyptian history and the biblical record. And naturally, I hold the biblical record in higher estimation. Um, and naturally, there are many questions that people have and that I had that presaged this effort. People often wonder, well, how many daughters did Jacob have? And who was the Pharaoh of the Exodus? And who was the Pharaoh that Moses knew, that Abraham knew? Lots of good questions. Let's go ahead and go through it. So there will be more questions to add to this list, and all of the questions we'll be looking at are relevant in order to arrive at what I believe, in retrospect of my research, is an almost airtight conclusion as to what actually happened in the past regarding the Bible and Egypt. And these are the questions, and more will follow on, no doubt. What was Tutankhamun's original name? He had another name before Tutankhamun, very similar. What does Tutankhamun's original name being changed have to do with the Bible? Quite a lot. Why did Tutankhamun's father, Akhenaten, switch Egypt from polytheism to monotheism? Does the Bible give us clues as to why this happened? Who was the Pharaoh of the Exodus? Who was the Pharaoh Abraham knew? And are there any corroborating details between what Egyptian history tells us about him and what the Bible says? Who was the Pharaoh who knew Joseph? What are some reasons we can know that Amenemhet III was the Pharaoh who knew Joseph? How can we know this is true? Were the children of Egypt really in Egypt for 400 to 430 years? I called Amazing Facts Bible Answers live. It was their position that they couldn't have been in Egypt for 400 years. And that makes sense. Because if you go to the generations, Levi, Kohath, Amram, and Moses, that's 4 generations. How do you get 4 generations from 430 years? More like 7 or 8. Anyways, how does a study of both the Bible and ancient Egyptian history together help to show how this could be a likely scenario? Before I studied Egyptian history, I wondered the same thing myself. How could they be in Egypt for 400 years? Who was the Egyptian mother of Moses? How did adopting Moses save her political future? And why does that matter? Why can we say with a certain amount of confidence that Tutmosis III was the Pharaoh of the Exodus? What are the reasons this is so? How did the Egyptians regard the God of Israel after the Israelites were settled in Canaan? Ancient Egyptian records tells us how the Egyptians felt about the God of the Israelites. That'll be interesting. Again, there will be more questions added. The first episode of Flashlights will be about a familiar person, Tutankhamun, and also his rather strange father, Pharaoh Akhenaten, also known as the heretic Pharaoh, Amenhotep IV. If you look over to the left middle, you can see a frog. Left down, left bottom, you can see a little red square. So they don't seem to be they're not being very nice to that frog. And my studies show, my research shows that engraving took place after the children of Israel left Egypt. So it's an interesting idea. So the next episode will be about the familiar person, Tutankhamun, and it will be very interesting. And I invite you on this journey. And thank you for your time. And until next week. I had to hurry because I don't know when it's going to stop recording. Maybe it already did. Did it? I don't know if it did or not.